Hello, friends. Welcome back to the School of Self-Worth. I'm your host, Nicole Song. Today, we are going to talk about a hot topic with so many of you, which is the fastest way to feel valued at work. This one comes up so much for my Asian American clients. And so I'm really excited to dig into this topic with all of you today because today's solution, it's simple, it's easy. You can do it daily. So simple. And before we get started, if you are an Asian American corporate leader who wants the exact strategy to be visible and valued in 10 minutes per day, DM me visible at Nicole Song on Instagram because I've got something over there for you. Okay, friends, let's dive into this week's episode. So tell me if this sounds familiar. If someone tells you that you did really well on a project, then you feel valued. When you get a new job, you are on top of the world. When you finally get that promotion you've been gunning for months, maybe years, now you feel like life is finally perfect. Or when you tell your parents about the promotion and they may not say anything, but you can see that approval in their eyes. Now is when you finally feel like you've made it. Here's the other side of this. Does this also feel familiar? When you get harsh feedback, your confidence plummets. When you are told that you are too literal, it weighs on you for weeks, if not months. When you are acknowledged for your contribution, but your boss says there's still more steps to take before you'll actually get the promotion you desire or the raise that you're requesting, you now start to wonder what it is exactly that you are doing wrong. So you probably have learned all of this stuff from the way that you grew up, both letting other people's opinions about you determine if you feel valuable, and then also letting your value decrease based on what other people are saying. And I'm here first to tell you that it's not your fault. This is super normal, and especially when you're growing up in Asian cultures, which are valuing your contribution to the family, to the whole, like who you are and everything that you do reflects on more people than just yourself. This is so common. This is the cultural conditioning that all of us have to take a look at, especially when you're growing up in a Western culture that really values individual contribution. But for you, you've probably never felt like your individual contribution was enough because it had to do more. It had to help lift your family up. It had to make everybody else in your life feel really good. So it might have looked this way growing up, where your parents valued and had such high expectations for your grades. And so you felt valuable and like you were doing what you were supposed to by essentially achieving those grades. Or they valued you having a secure job because they were likely immigrants and they probably had to work really hard to get over here, and they crossed an ocean to raise you the way that they did. And so for you, they wanted you to have a secure job. So you went out and you got one. Valued also look like, doing the things that they expected of you, from getting a secure job, going to a good college, and then continuing to follow a pathway that they feel is the best one for you. So when we grow up this way, we tend to now constantly give what we think of as valuing ourselves away to other people. It started with your parents. It may have spread around your siblings and your other family members, extended family, and then it went and moved on to your boss and to your friends and your peers. But here's the question. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself if you value yourself? Do you see your own gifts? Do you know what is actually special about you? And if you're like, well, I don't know that I know, or maybe I know, but I'd have to ask a few people, it's likely because you're outsourcing your self-worth to other people's opinions of you. And you are letting their opinions sway how you feel on a daily basis. This is why some days you feel terrible, no matter how good your life might seem on the outside, like a good job, maybe you have a partner, a family, you're driving a good car. It seems like life is pretty good. But then you're coming up against this feeling, this nagging sense that it isn't actually that good. And that whenever you get somewhere, that goalpost is constantly moving. And now we're going to come up also against another super common cultural block. And this one is praise for other people. Did you have parents who never ever said, good job? Like you came home with an A minus and they're like, not good enough. Or even if you came home with the A plus, they just sort of nodded. Like that's just the way it was supposed to be. So I don't want to ever put it out there that your parents had to do that. But I want you to start to understand how it affected your ability to acknowledge yourself, your ability to see what you do in the world that's actually really great and your own unique contribution. This leads me to one of my favorite brain facts, which I've shared before, and I'll share again because repetition is a huge part of what we have to start to learn and understand about our own brain. So you have 80 to 100,000 thoughts a day. We've studied it, right? And when you look at those 80, so first of all, that is a lot of thoughts. So now we can start to maybe have some distance from those thoughts because thoughts are just thoughts. They're not truth or fact. They're just thoughts. On top of that, 80% of them or so are negative. So now think about how if you're in a negative spiral or you're constantly criticizing yourself, totally normal, good to know. And on top of that, 95% of what you think is repeating from the day before. So there's not a lot of original thinking going on up there. It's mostly the same stuff, recycling like a wash cycle in your brain over and over and over again. So if you get into a crazy negative loop, can you see how it can be really difficult to break that and just going over and over again? It takes months to rewire these negative habits. It's something we really focus on a lot in Your Clear Calling because it takes a lot for us to learn to break it. Although I will tell you it is possible. And when you do break it, that's actually when we start to really get some new freedom in our lives. But that negative cycle is causing you to feel not valued by other people. So now we're talking about, okay, how do you start to change and perceive how value is for you? Like who values you and what can you do to actually value yourself? Because here's the trick. When you value yourself, that's when other people value you. When you are in your own confidence and clarity, you know who you are, you know what matters to you, and you're not worried about whether you're doing it right because you're clear on what works best for you. People respect that. People start to understand and acknowledge that. And the more you can actually value yourself, that's when things blow the lid off. Seriously. Like so many of my clients, when we start in Your Clear Calling, we really start with some of these practices because it's so important for them. The reason they don't speak up is because they don't value themselves. Or the reason they get stuck in the weeds and they're in the literal detail-oriented things they have to do every single day is because they don't value that they have a bigger picture strategy, that they don't value they have more to offer than what they're currently offering. So you can really start to make this change to feel valued right away. And it's really simple. I wouldn't say it's easy. Often the simplest things are the hardest things to do every day. Rewiring your brain, I put in that category. Simple and yet quite challenging for most of us. But here is the way to start. And you can start with these couple of simple questions. How can I value myself today? How can I acknowledge myself, praise myself for something that I did and feel worthy of the things that I did and feel my self-worth really come back to myself and not let other people be determining for me how I feel about myself today? And again, this is, we've got those 80 to 100,000 thoughts that we're playing with every day. So sometimes for people, like a little resistance comes up. They're like, well, I don't know that I can do that. I don't actually feel that way. And I'm like, it's not really about whether you feel that way or not. It's about focusing your attention towards that. Sometimes my clients say, they're like, well, I don't actually think I feel that badly about myself. And then the more we dig into it, they actually are quite hard on themselves consistently. And the harder you are on yourself, the harder it is to feel valuable, to feel like you have something to give to the world. And I promise you, the more that you make the shift mentally, and the more you start to really weigh in on this question of how can I value myself today? What's one thing I can value for what's one thing I can say, wow, that was amazing, Nicole. That was amazing that you did that today. The more we can do that, that's the more we can turn the tide in our brain. And we start to see our own reflection and say, oh, wow, you're pretty awesome. You are pretty great. And you also know the pathway forward. And this is where confidence starts to come in. You start to really be more visible because you're no longer suppressing the truth of who you really are. And it really does start with this one tiny pebble of just asking yourself that question: how can I value myself today? So if this resonated with you in any way, please screenshot it, share it on Instagram, tag me in there. And if you're like, I really want to do this, but I actually know that I want to do the full rewiring, I am ready for the whole system, the whole framework to completely change these loops in my brain, get out of the reactivity, and really get into a deep well of self-worth and value, DM me visible on Instagram and Nicole Song, because I've got something over there for you, and we can just start to have a really rich conversation from there. Okay, friends, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.